because you mentioned shedding hair. What was it that was causing you to shed hair the most from the androgens or different drugs that you took? And you didn't shed much hair. I mean, you look almost the same as. Oh, and a little bit in the back.
Yeah. So my hair's thin, but my hair has always been thin. Like it's a little more thin than before, but it's nothing like you could say, oh, I took steroids so my hair is thinner. No, at worst case, it's natural aging process or something like that. But I noticed that most of my hair loss came, and I'll relate this to the androgens in a minute, but I noticed, first of all, how do I know there's hair loss? Because when I wash my hair, if I grab my hair like this and pull out, either hair falls out or it doesn't. Mm-hmm. It's such an easy test. Mm-hmm. And at periods of time in my life where I was under the most amount of psychological stress, maybe physical, everything, but especially psychological stress, that's when I noticed hair's falling out, irrespective of what androgens that I'm on. And Coach Trevor was the same thing. Like, he did a lot of steroids, never lost any hair, went through a divorce with his wife at a very young age. All his hair fell out within 2 months because he's a very romantic person, actually. And when he loves someone, it's love to the death. So when he went through that divorce, that was practically death for him. I could see how it would be so stressful that he would lose all of his hair, and that's what happened. And it never grew back since. And we've done experiments to grow his hair back since then, and we've learned a lot. But then for me, it was like when baby mama got pregnant and she basically said, now I've got you. That's when my hair started falling out a lot. And then also as a lawyer, just stressing myself, working 18 hours a day, running myself into the ground, not enough rest, I was noticing hair coming out. And so that's in my early 30s, late 20s and early 30s that I was sort of, but my hair was already thin before that. Okay, so here's how the androgens affected it. I never lost a lot of hair from Winstrol, Masterone, Proviron. These are all the DHT-based steroids that most people lose hair from. Mm-hmm. But when I used them and I was under psychological stress, I lost hair. So, for example, Trenbolone supposedly can make you lose a little bit of hair by itself, but it's not the Trenbolone itself, it's the stress that Trenbolone causes me, because I become a very stressful person on Trenbolone, and I believe it is the anxiety that causes the hair loss. For me, now that's not for everybody. Some people are very sensitive to DHT compounds, and they take any one of those mentioned compounds and they're going to lose hair.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with you. I had the same experience with Trenbolone myself. Trenbolone obviously causes the most of the commonly used steroids, the most norepinephrine and epinephrine, as we call the hypothalamus pituitary axis or adrenal axis, the HPA axis, just gets overworked. And when you're on Trenbolone, it's like even your nerves, you feel you can't sleep well. And that's when I noticed the same thing happening. And because there's DNA damage going on when you have that.
So you mentioned epinephrine, norepinephrine. So this is adrenaline, noradrenaline. Say adrenaline, right? Yeah. Makes us like that. So I believe that the reason why it's the anxiety causing me more hair loss, not the DHT, is because I don't have the genetic predisposition for hair loss from DHT, but what affects all of us is blood flow to the scalp. And the pathway that minoxidil works on, for example, Rogaine, is to bring blood flow to the scalp. And some of the people that I've seen that have the best hair, every morning they do this where they hang upside down, but not hang, but they put their head upside down and they massage their scalp, and they have fantastic hair. And so I think what's happening is adrenaline pulls blood flow away from things like your scalp. And so I think we're depriving certain parts of our body, including our scalp, of blood flow because we're in a stress response because of the stress hormones that are triggered by the possible androgens. Or the androgens also change our mindset so that we just become more easily triggered to have a stress response, Absolutely. Even if they aren't directly causing the stress response.
Well, this is absolutely proven, by the way. This has been shown in studies that androgens cause people to have a more, actually the amygdala becomes way more overactive, and the amygdala is the fight or flight primal part of the brain. It's a small part of the brain. It disconnects from other parts of the brain like the prefrontal cortex on long-term androgen use. And this causes an overactivation of that HPA axis that I was mentioning as well. I know more about hair going white because I'm going gray more, and I think you experience the same thing. Now that is DNA damage. That's actually DNA damage at the hair follicle root, which is why you'll find when you get stressed for periods of time, your hair will you'll notice a few more strands, and that is literally the hair follicle having DNA damage and losing its function, which means you're also getting DNA damage everywhere else in your body. It's not just the hair. And that is the actual kind of damage that with IGF-1 and mTOR could lead to problems later on.